Welcome to the Happy Soul Podcast. My name is Melissa, and this is Sammy. We are diving deep into conversations that connect and inspire. Stories of resilience, triumph, and transformation. Stories that take us to the heart of human connection. Please note that opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect those of this podcast. Please listen with your kindness and an open mind. Each story shared is authentic and vulnerable. Let's embrace our differences with empathy, knowing every voice enriches us. Together, let's cultivate a community of respect and curiosity. Thank you for listening. Now sit back, relax, and prepare to be inspired.
Welcome to the Happy Soul Podcast, everybody. Today we are here with Rebekah. Rebekah runs DIY Mom, which she says she renovates, redecorates, and restores, which we are super excited to dive into how that got started with Rebekah, how Rebekah started DIY Mom, how the inspirations come to her, so much about that. But she just came back from an incredible trip to Africa, going to an event, working on a course called Hope of Africa. And we would love, Rebekah, for you to tell us about Hope of Africa, what you were doing in Africa, and why that is so important to you. Bunch of questions thrown at you. Welcome to the podcast.
Okay. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I just got back from South Africa. So I went there to help Heather, who is the founder of Hope of Africa. It's a leadership and vocational training school for young adults between the age of 18 and 34. And they do all kinds of things like learning about construction and hospitality and vocational skills like cooking and sewing and their primary focus is just on developing strong leaders in South Africa that will stay in South Africa. So she's kind of departed from that Oprah sort of style of plucking the best and brightest out of each village and bringing them to America or sending them to a private school. Instead, this is kind of taking the best and brightest of the villages, developing them into leaders that can then go back into their home villages, start a business, or be hired to work for someone else. It's a very competitive job market in South Africa. Something like 70% of young adults that graduate with a university degree are unemployed or don't have a job prospect. So even getting a job as a waitress in a restaurant, like they'll just throw out the applications of people that don't have a university degree. So it's incredibly competitive. So what we want to try to do is encourage more people to be entrepreneurs because there's a huge workforce in Africa. Africa is going to be the main workforce in the world by 2030. They're still having 10 kids in a family. So there's plenty of people that are eager to work and there's lots of job opportunities. We just need to start that mindset in the young people that they can be entrepreneurs and they can, start their own business and be successful that way as well. So I went over to actually help Hope of Africa create more content and video what they do in the school and just sort of help hone in on the marketing side of Hope of Africa because we do still need to bring in funds, foreign aid to make the school sustain. But in the long term, Hope of Africa is really hoping to set up a bunch of in-house sort of shops, cafes, restaurants, all these opportunities for the kids to work within the building, the lighthouse building that they bought in Malalon, which is a huge 1,300 square foot building with lots of opportunity. But they also need to raise money right now just to get these things off the ground. So part of the work I did was just to go over there, film the success stories, previous graduates, what they're doing in the school, the current kids working in the various programs that they're doing, and put together some video for them. But while I was there, I also mentored and taught the kids that are in the program how to do what I do, which is storytelling through video. So it was a very busy 2 weeks.
Yeah, wow. That's incredible.
I love all of that. That is so cool. So is this something that is going to be something that we can watch over here?
Yeah, well, I did create a sort of a summary of my trip. I created a 8 or 9 minute video of my trip, and I put it on my personal YouTube channel. It's not like associated with the DIY Mom one, but it's definitely something that you can find if you put into YouTube, Hope of Africa trip summary video. But I will be creating more video content that Hope of Africa can use as they share their message of what they're doing. And I'm hoping to go back in the near future because for one, Heather is pitching to the wealthiest woman in South Africa in August, and we need to create a really compelling video. We have like 20 seconds to capture her attention. So I really want to help her with that piece of content that she needs to create that video. And I also would love to go back before this group graduates to with a project that has to do with building humane housing that is built from traditional materials and things that the kids can access and the budget that people normally have to build a house in South Africa and the villages, but show them how to do it so it's got better ventilation, it's more heat resistant, because a lot of the ways that they currently build the houses, they don't have a lot of ventilation and airflow, is what I noticed when I went to the villages and went to the houses and went to the, the village churches and all the different places that we went. There's just like no airflow. I'm like, they're not accessing the African breeze. So we need to help them with that. And I would love to kind of bring building plans with me that then the graduates could graduate and they put it in their portfolio. They have those certificates, they have those building plans, and they can go back to their villages and be a contractor and like sell those houses to folks in their village and build them and use the labor in the villages and those kids that are eager to work, those young adults that are eager to have work, to train other folks in their villages to build these houses. So I think that would be a great way for them to start their own business and also build housing that's desperately needed and that is more humane and easy to live in because it's built using better ventilation and better heat resistance.
Wow.
That's holy man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, all I'm going back to is like she has 20 seconds to catch these people's attention. Like that is pressure's on 20 seconds to get. Oh, comments I could talk about short attention spans right now, but I won't. But that's like, I just love how beautiful that is. Like the work, not to like shame what people have done where they like pulling people out and bringing them places, but to put back into their economy and their country and their businesses instead of bringing it here. How incredible. I had a friend who old high school friend, he's in Dominican, and they've been doing that in the Dominican in similar ways. Like their business their company, I guess, brings in, they go and basically educate anybody in jail and they teach them how to be an entrepreneur, give back to the society, be contributing members, be good parents, be responsible, all of these things. And they've seen like the reincarceration rate has dropped from like 50% to like 10% or something like that from just re-educating these people. So there's so much power in actually investing in that country, in that town, in that city, in that organized community instead of bringing them out, So that's
we really
beautiful.
want to break those generational cycles. So, changing the mindset and also helping them to really influence their own communities and their villages, because they're never going to those communities are never really going to get ahead if we don't really equip them or if they don't feel empowered to do it for themselves. So the idea is that they hopefully will not need us eventually and they can kind of just go on without us. But a lot of these kids that are going to Hope of Africa are orphans and they're also responsible for multiple dependents. So there was a whole generation that was lost to HIV. And so those were the kids that originally Heather had in the African Children's Choir. And when the African Children's Choir got shut down, those kids got all sent back to their villages with no protection, no parents looking after them, back into the chaos of a housing structure that, has no adults taking care of the kids. It's kids taking care of kids. And so realizing that there was just this absence of the kids learning how to be leaders and how to be, really manage their households. Like that's why she really felt passionate about starting the school. So yeah, these kids have gone through a lot. They've been traumatized. They've experienced a lot of suffering. And so, we are working with them to restore and heal them, but also to equip them so that they can be great influences in their communities and really change that cycle of abuse and poverty that they were raised in.
Wow. That's
Amazing.
incredible. So can you tell us how you went from, obviously you built DIY Mom, which we want to get into. How did that connect you to Hope of Africa?
Well, it's so interesting because when I was in Africa, I really felt like everything that I've ever experienced in my life has led me to this point. They,
That's cool.
everything that I could do that because I've learned it over the years of just, my personal education, which is just trial by fire. Um, I was able to use in South Africa. So I not only was, filming and editing content, I was showing people how to film, how to do sound, how to work in the editing softwares that they had. But then as well, I was helping them stage an Airbnb and decorate a space. I was also put in charge of like putting together a choir and taking that choir, practicing a song with them, and performing at three local churches on a Sunday. So that like brought in my whole music career again. So all these things that I had experienced in my life up to this point are really, I felt like it's just amazing how it all came together with the skills that I was able to use while I was in South Africa. Um, so yeah, like because DIY mom was also a situation that I sort of found myself in and had to reinvent myself and learn all these new skills from scratch or just by being curious and asking people and learning. Um, I was sort of able to share that with the kids as well when I'm mentoring them that, um, if you pay attention, if you ask questions, if you're curious, these are all the things that are going to help you in whatever profession you decide, whatever entrepreneurial journey you decide. And so helping the kids find their passion and what they're passionate about so that they can then go and be entrepreneurs in that area is also something that I was able to encourage them to do because not everybody is going to be interested in construction. Maybe they want to do childcare, maybe they want to do after school programs, but whatever it is that they choose to do as an entrepreneur, because there is so much opportunity. If you're an entrepreneur, they can pick whatever field they want to and be successful in it. It's just a matter of discovering your passions and like doing the hard work to become good at your craft.
I love that, doing the hard work and
Yeah.
discovering to be good at your craft. Yeah,
So good.
absolutely. Absolutely. From what I remember from our initial conversation, Rebecca, it was you were a musician and DIY mom just kind of naturally happened of you, like what you just talked about, discovering your craft, reinventing yourself, figuring out what you were capable of doing. Can we back up all the way to that part of your story of being a musician and how that transitioned into DIY mom?
Sure. Well, as a musician, I always had to have a entrepreneurial perspective about it because I was applying for grants. I was organizing our tours. I was booking, reaching out to venues and booking the venues and booking the opening acts and hiring people to put out the posters and creating Facebook events. And so, there wasn't an entrepreneurial side of being an independent musician. And then as I grew and I got signed to a record label and I got a booking agent and I got a manager, people started to kind of look after those things for me. But because I had developed a bit of a understanding of how the industry worked, I sort of knew what everybody was supposed to be doing and to help me along in my journey. And then when I was leading a band, also organizing all the other players in the band, making sure they're showing up on time, doing rehearsals efficiently, planning on the next record and recording and writing the songs for it. So there was a lot of daily effort that had to go into being a musician. And I ended up moving to Toronto. And that was when I was in Toronto that I got pregnant unexpectedly. And then I had my daughter. And so at that point, I, I was thinking sort of the music industry and the career that I had built maybe was not going to be sustainable. So looking to the future, what I was going to do next, I first of all, I was lucky enough to be able to move back to Nova Scotia. That really changed things for me. So I moved back to Halifax, and I was like, what am I going to do now with my career? I always loved collecting home decor and vintage items, and I put together wild costumes when I was in my bands for on stage, and so I thrifted a lot, and I thought maybe I'll start a vintage store or a consignment shop or something like that. So I was kind of bouncing around like what's going to be my next venture. And I had a friend that had slept on my couch for a couple of months the year before, or a couple of years before I was pregnant anyway. And he said, I owe you a favor, Rebecca. Why don't you come down and be the casting assistant to me for a day at Egg Films? And Egg was a commercial uh, TV, like broad production house. So they produced larger budgets, bigger scale commercials in Halifax. And so I went down to help him with an open casting call, and he said he'd give me $100. And at the end of the day, he was like, "You're the best casting director or assistant I've ever had. I'll give you $150." And then I met the owner of Egg, Sarah, and she was like, "What are you doing tomorrow? Can you come back in? I'll pay you $250 to make calls for a McDonald's commercial." So I was, and because she found out I could speak French. So, and then after that, as I was talking to Mike and Sarah, and they're like, what are you thinking you want to do in film? And I was like, well, maybe I'd like to be a producer, um, produce commercials or, and so I just like ended up showing up there every day until they said, we'll just put you on payroll. And so eventually I had a full-time job in the commercial film and television industry in Halifax. And I moved up the ranks pretty quickly to become associate producer at Ag Films. So I was learning so much, and they had no idea that I had no production background technically. Like they kind of thought maybe I went to CFC because this guy that gave me the job on the first day, he had gone to CFC. So they thought maybe that's how we knew each other. So, and I had worked on some CFC stuff as doing art department and set decorating. So all of a sudden I was working in this job that I really had no idea what I was doing. I was just kind of faking it every day till I made it, and just asking a lot of questions and working really hard, and because I found it so interesting. It was a lot of fun. And then as I was working at Ag, they found out that I had all these creative abilities. Like I could do hair and makeup, and I could do wardrobe, and I could do set decorating. So I started to take more of an artistic role on shoots. And then as commercials sort of started changing and shifting and becoming, lower budget or for YouTube or for social media, that sort of job that I could do where I could do hair, makeup, wardrobe, and art department became very useful on these sort of uh, smaller productions, so like only a few crew members. Um, and during that time, I was just asking lots of questions, talking to the agents, talking to the clients, talking to the actors, talking to the behind the camera crew, and becoming very curious about film production. And I was asking one of my friends that was worked at a advertising agency, what's going to be the next big trend in marketing? And they were saying branded content. And I didn't know what branded content was, but I thought I would look into it. And it turns out that's sort of what we call influencer marketing now. But at the time, this sort of shift was going to be in branded content. So longer form videos where you sort of sneak the product into the content, but it's people are more watching it because you're getting an educational piece, or you're getting something funny, or you're getting something that makes you cry, like you're feeling something, and it's a longer form video. So that got me thinking, okay, what would my personal brand be if I was going to start my own brand? And because of my background as a musician in that DIY industry, DIY was a term we used all the time. We were silk screening our posters, we were making our merch. And because of my background growing up with parents that flipped houses before flipping was a thing, and very creatively painting and fixing things up, and then my own personal background of being able to do art directing, backgrounds, and really loving creating a beautiful space, I sort of started dabbling into renovations and filming those and editing them myself and posting them on my YouTube channel as DIY Mom. And within about a year of doing my own DIY Mom videos, I was asked by Bell to create my own TV show. And so that led to 5 seasons of DIY Mom. So I guess that's the long-winded version of how I went from music to DIY Mom.
Oh my gosh. I with so many questions in back in there that I know Melissa I see writing down too, but I just want to say I think it's incredible and very inspiring to hear you speak about what you were good at and how what you've learned, and not in a what you learned in a non traditional
In a
education sense.
humble way.
In a humble way, yeah. Thank you. Like you've learned this on your own. You've gained these skills on your own. Hearing you speak about how good you are at these things is really inspiring. And I hope anybody listening hears that.
Oh, thank
If
you.
nothing else, I hope they hear that you don't have to have, and I'm not saying you don't have a traditional background, but you don't have to have a traditional education in something to be good at it, to be confident in your capabilities, to move forward in that direction. I think that's incredibly inspiring how confident you are. And maybe you don't feel that confident, but you speak very confidently of it. And I think that says enough of itself. So
Yeah, I think that the traditional roots of educating yourself can be very, very beneficial, and it's a great way to develop and hone in on a craft. But because I didn't know where my life was going to take me by the time I was 31 and had a baby, I was just always adapting, and it was just whatever was necessary for me to survive, to get to the next paycheck. And then when you become a single mother, now your priorities and your energy shifts to, okay, I've got to support my child. I have to have a house, like a roof over her head. I have to provide for her to eat. I have to create structure and safety so that this child can thrive. So when your priorities change as a mother, and if you're on your own, then yeah, like that hunger to understand and gain knowledge becomes like a survival mechanism.
yeah.
I love, like I wrote down, I'm like, I I love every time you say you got curious, because
Mm.
I think that that is something that is so, it's tangible, and it is just, I think it clearly has led you so far into your success. And I think that is such a key piece. So speaking to somebody the other day, he's a young man who is in high school, and we were talking about getting a job. And he kept saying things, almost deprecating things like, well, but I don't have any experience in that. Oh, but I don't know anything about that. But I've never done that before. And I was like, Trey, when you're talking to a teenager, you have to be kind of cautious about the way that you say things, because, like, push too hard, but you don't. And I'm like, I'm just going to say the thing. So I'm like, listen, I got to just be bold with you. I said, I think that it's really important that that people that are hiring teenagers, they're not expecting you to have 20 years experience. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to learn these things by doing them. You don't go into a job at this stage of your life knowing all of it. And I think that
Hmm.
get curious is like the best piece of advice for somebody who is maybe navigating this life in, I don't know where my life is going to go now. Like, getting curious, I think, is just the best possible thing as a lifestyle, really.
It's interesting what's happening to our youth today too, because it is becoming more challenging to get that job at Wendy's or McDonald's or Walmart. Like those used to be
Yeah.
the easy jobs to get, right? You would
Yeah.
drop off a resume at McDonald's, you could get a job at McDonald's or at the local mall. There's all these.
Hmm.
I think when I was in high school, I had a job at a retail shop. But
Hmm.
before that, I was doing jobs for my dad, and he had some apartment buildings, so I would like go and pick up the garbage around the building. I would pressure wash the building. I would fix things up by painting it. So I was always doing a little bit of labor work, even as a young, like in my 14, 15, 16-year-old stage, when I needed a little bit of extra money. And I think that I just got used to the idea that you have to work hard to make
Yeah.
money, as on top of the fact that I think that a lot of our kids today, even if they can't get that job at McDonald's or at the mall, they probably have the means to start their own business, meaning they can buy a lawnmower, or their parents could help them buy a lawnmower, and they can go and drop off flyers and do some landscaping. There's a lot of parents that might need extra help around their houses. Like even if you're a babysitter and you want to express to them, hey, I actually like doing laundry, or I like organizing and cleaning a house. Those are ways that I have actually employed people over the years, was just like finding that babysitter that was like extra keen and giving them some more hours. So I think that it's not unlike what's going on in Africa, where the kids
Hmm.
just need to be encouraged to be entrepreneurs. But because we do have an influx of new Canadians right now that are taking up some of those, jobs that don't require any experience,
Mhm.
maybe it's time for us to sort of talk to our kids about what are you interested in? How can you start to plant those seeds now for what an entrepreneurial journey might look like for you?
It's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool because what it does is it takes something that feels kind of icky, for lack of a better word, and it turns into the world of possibilities. Like
Mm,
when you're in control of your own self, the world is literally at your feet, like, and getting those jobs has changed so much. I did not know this. I have young babies still. I had no idea. But Sammy, did you know this? Do you know what it's like to drop off a resume now? We used to have to like print them all off and you walk around and you go and you meet them and you have to be presentable and have the good resume. Now it's all online.
Mm-hmm.
oh,
So
okay.
he, he- you're dropping off a resume, but now it's apply online. Everywhere is apply online. So the people that are doing the hiring, they're not seeing your face. They're not getting a feel for who you are. They literally will take the top whatever came in first and hire those ones and then throw them out, like delete.
Mm,
So you don't even get a chance. You haven't even had your face in there. So whoever's on the top files of the resumes, just that's how they're getting these jobs. So like it is very discouraging for these young people to be feeling like it's just impossible. Like you're not even getting a chance to make an impression. So by taking that power back and creating
mm,
that entrepreneurial mindset, I think that is just like how empowering for not just young people, but everybody. That is empowering
Mm-hmm.
that you can take something and go, okay, what am I interested in and how can I get more curious about it? I love it. I love every piece of it. I think it's great. It's such
It's
a
a
good
good
message.
it's a good and bad thing, the apply online, right? Like, because you don't have an opportunity to make that impression, but at the same
Mm,
time, the employer
mhm,
doesn't have the opportunity to make a bias. So
mm.
it's kind of good and bad, but we won't stick there. Just I had to say that. I want to
Mhm.
ask Rebecca, going back to getting back into DIY mom, and you said, it was 31 when you had your baby, you became a single mom, and you had to figure out, what am I gonna do? What's my path here? What was the time frame between being a 31-year-old mom having a new baby to I'm making a movie with Belle or a TV show with Belle? What was that time frame?
I think it was about 3 years. So the first year was just survival. I had an infant, and I had a maternity leave, so I was getting some income from my waitressing uh, job that I had before I gave birth. And then I was able to apply for legal aid when my daughter was about 8 months old to get the legal paperwork made so that I could move back to Halifax. And that happened about when she was 1 year old. We moved back to Halifax. And then probably over the course of that summer was when I started working at Ag, and they had an opening because one of their associate producers was out for a period of time with an illness. So I was able to kind of fill in until she came back. And that was when I started to get my feet wet in the commercial industry and then figure out all my other skills that I had that were applicable. Um, and then uh, I think it was also over the course of that summer that I was in a rental, um, a house that I rented from my dad, and he gave me some money to do some renovations. It very badly needed a new bathroom and a new kitchen. So he said, you can oversee that renovation. I was able to do that, pick out everything that I wanted for the kitchen on a very small budget. I think I had like $17,000 to do the bathroom and the kitchen. And so I took some before and after pictures and shared those on my social media. And then I started to kind of film little clips of me doing things like tiling or painting, and it kind of grew from that. And then by the following spring, I think that's when I first pitched DIY Mom as a concept to the women in film and television. Um, and I didn't win that pitch, but people still remember that pitch to this day. So that in itself is a good experience for me. And then I started to take the concept of DIY Mom to production houses around the city that film for HGTV and other TV shows, but all of them said that it wasn't a good idea and that I should do something else with my life. But I didn't believe them. I was like, no, I think this is a good idea. I'm going to keep going with it. And so it just motivated me to do more of that stuff independently. And so I had a friend that was able to film and edit longer format content for me. And we started working together. That's Martin Noel, and he's been my editor for the last all 5 seasons. He filmed it and worked with me on it. And we created this. The first little series we did was the Welcome Home series I did on my YouTube channel. And it was just the initial stages of this renovation that I did when I purchased my first house to renovate. And I used that just to leverage some brand deals, just to bring some brands in to support me on my renovation. Like, hey, you give me some free material and I'll put it in my show and I'll mention your brand. And just doing that got me noticed by another production company that hired me to be a host on their show called Eyes for the Job. But again, I didn't love working for somebody else. I didn't like having to pretend that their ideas were my ideas. I didn't really like the aesthetic of what they were going for. So I really wanted to do my own show. And luckily enough, Bell was actively seeking new content for 5TV1, which is Access TV, and every Canadian network has to put so much money back into Canadian content. And so when Belle asked me, do I want to do DIY Mom? I said yes. And then I used that money that they gave me to leverage more brands, to finish my renovation, and to create as best of a show as I possibly could to try to elevate it to the next level. And also spending a lot of that time teaching myself how to properly edit, how to run a production, and everything that had to go into filming a TV show. And so by that point, I think it was 2017. So my daughter was 2017. So I guess my daughter was born in 2013. So she was about 3 years old when the first season of DIY Mom happened.
How
You're
surreal.
unstoppable.
Right? Right?
Like, what?
A
They
little
told me no.
delusional, maybe.
So,
I think the delusion is what helps. Honestly, like I wouldn't call you delusional, but I think that that's what helps. Like so many people, you hear the success story, all the not this one specifically, but the little piece of people kept telling me I was crazy and to stop and go home. And I didn't, and I kept believing in it, and here I am. And you hear that so often that we think that if you believe in your dream, you can't pursue something you don't believe in. But if you believe in your goal and your dream, you can make it happen. Obviously, there's a lot of work, and how much work and how many no's and that's going to take to get there is different for everybody's story. But you can pursue that and make it happen if you really have that. If you believe in it and you're able to get access to the right steps to move forward. So
Yeah, and make it happen was our family mantra growing up. Actually, when my dad dropped us off every day at school, he would say, make it happen. And
no.
so, yeah, so make it happen was the family mantra. And yeah, and I think that it just really, I understood, even as a musician, when I was trying to build a music career, I knew that nobody cared about my career, nobody cared about my art like I did. If that's what I really wanted to do, I had to make it happen for myself. Like I couldn't expect somebody to discover me and make me a star. I knew that I had to pound the pavement and reach out to venues and book my own tours and start the process of being a musician and just do it. And then the people that are in line with me or the people that can help me along my journey will come along eventually. But if I didn't start the wheel in motion, it would just never happen. And so I think a lot of people are kind of sitting on their hands waiting for somebody to come and discover them. And that's just so unlikely to happen that I just tell people that if you care about something, if you're passionate about something, then you have to be responsible for making that happen for yourself. Nobody else is going to care about it like you are going to care about it. So do it.
So do it.
You're right.
I love that.
No one else is going to care about it.
Well,
the way you
Dad,
care
I think
about
the
it.
mantra is working. Like,
Yeah.
what? Dang, I just love that so much. Like, nope, gonna do it myself. Nope. Like,
Well, it's a real DIY journey in many ways because I was like the DIY thing really resonated with me because I was doing it myself as a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was doing it myself as like a production company and figuring out how to be a producer. And so not only is it that the work I'm doing is DIY in terms of the design and the renovations and the building things, but it's also very encompassing do it yourself in all aspects of how the DIY mom brand was able to take off.
Yeah.
So amazing. Do you ever get overwhelmed by like, I want to learn this new thing. I have no idea where to start. I have no idea where it's going to go or what it's going to do for me, but I just want to do it. Does that ever feel overwhelming?
Yeah, I think that when you get sort of slapped with a new tech thing or a new thing that you've got to figure out, that can feel overwhelming. And sometimes I just don't even bother. Like, I didn't really bother to build a TikTok. I just felt like that was like another thing. Oh my goodness. And so, there are some things that I do, yeah, like it can feel daunting. But it's the same thing with everything. If you just do one little thing at a time, like you eventually learn it and eventually get better at it. Um, I have to do some website updates, and I'm thinking, okay, I either have to hire somebody that understands how to do it, or I'm going to have to learn how to do it so I can get it done. So, um, yeah, sometimes it's just a matter of like, do I have the time to learn this thing? For instance, I could really benefit from knowing how to use AutoCAD, which is a like a drafting program for interior floor plans and elevations and architecture. So part of me is like, I should probably just learn how to use AutoCAD and SketchUp just so that I can, when I'm in a rush and I need to get something done for a client, I don't have to rely on anybody else. I can just do it for myself. But at the same time, sometimes I think, well, maybe my time is better spent in other areas and I can hire somebody that already knows how to do this. So at this point, it's becoming a bit more of a balancing act. Like what is a valuable use of my time
Mm-hmm.
and what is something that I can um, delegate to other people who can do it just as well as I can, or better than me. And it doesn't require me a whole lot of startup time, learning how to do something.
When I was a personal trainer, one of my clients, well, full-time personal trainer, one of my clients, he had a very successful surveying company. And he said that was his like biggest lesson. He was in his 60s. They very massively successful business. I don't know what the name of it was. But anyways, he said to me, like if you're ever starting a business and you're ever doing it on your own, it was basically kind of what you said. He was like, for a little while, you're going to have to do everything. But as soon as you have the means to pay someone else to do something that you know could do it better than you, do that. He's like, because you can't do everything and you're not going to be good at everything, but somebody is really good at that. And you're going to go down real fast if you don't hire the right people to take over as soon as you can. And I'm like, yeah, because just like you said, like your time is better spent. You might be able to do AutoCAD and learn it, but is that the best use of your time if you have the resources to get someone else to do it for you, right? So,
Yeah.
I think that's incredible.
Yeah. And I've told that to friends of mine that are starting their own contracting companies, or they're a carpenter, they're skilled in one area and they're taking on renovations and they're kind of trying to do all the things themselves. If you want to, if they want to be paid $50 an hour as a carpenter, and then they're going to go tile your bathroom for you at $50 an hour, but they're not a tiler, they don't do it every day, so they're slower. So a regular tiler that's excellent at their job, that's all they do all day long is tiling, they might be exactly $50 an hour too, or maybe they're $45 an hour. So you bring that person into your project, they do the tiling while you do something else, and maybe you mark up, like you're hiring them, so you mark up on them so that you're still making a little bit of income off of being the sort of general manager or the organizer of the renovation. So there's ways to work smarter and not harder, I guess is the old saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I have to circle back to a couple questions I have for you. One of them is this stuck out to me when we had our initial call with you, and it sticks out to me again today, but it was the piece of when, your friend said to come in and help with that production company, and then you just kept showing up until they eventually hired you. Do you recall how long it was that you showed up before they were like, oh, we'll just put you on payroll, we're not paying you? Do you know how long
I
it
think
was?
that I think it was a couple of weeks of them paying me like $250 every time I came in for the day.
Okay.
And so yeah, so like the first day I got $100, and then at the end of the day I got 150, and the next day I got $250, and then I just kind of like kept showing up, and they were paying me $250 to do stuff for the day, and then eventually they just said, "How about we give you $1,000 a week?" Uh, and so then I was on payroll, but at that time, like I had never made $1,000 a week at anything in my life, so I was like living it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." I can now, yeah, like it was just was all the difference from being like hand to mouth to all of a sudden having have a little bit of extra money to take my daughter out to eat, to buy her some
Mhm.
clothes, to, lease a car, things like that that really started to broaden my horizons, and just realizing that when people make a good living wage too, that they become active contributors back into society. Then they have that extra income to spend and to put into those hospitality industries and local commerce and things like that. So yeah, that was like my first real like decent paying full-time gig.
Can you speak a little bit about what that was like for you? Because did you know each day that you showed up they were going to pay you the $250, or did you just start showing up and at the end they were like, "Did we pay you yet?" And they just paid you like.
I'm not sure if I remember exactly if it was like, I know that when I came back to do the McDonald's thing, she said, I'll pay you $250 to do that. But there was definitely days where I think I just showed up knowing that there would be some kind of gap in their workforce or what they had, and that I would just be given a task for the day. And so I think I was just individually billing out those days. And it's so hard for me to remember now. I'll have to like ask Sarah, Mike, can you go back into the payroll and tell me how long it took before you started paying me like on salary? But I really think it was just a matter of like, I think that the casting thing was like on a Monday or a Tuesday, and the McDonald's thing was on a Wednesday, and I showed up on the Thursday and the Friday, and then probably came back on the following week. And I don't remember what, maybe there was a new commercial that was just starting, uh and then they got me to do the wardrobe on it or something. Like it was just some kind of scramble. And then probably by the end of that next commercial that I worked on, they were like, we'll just put you on payroll. And I had a little
So good.
office and everything. It was great. It was such a
So
fun
good.
place to work too, because it was right down on the waterfront, and they had like a very young office. And it was my first time like working in a corporate situation where there's like ping pong tables and, and like snacks and a
Cool.
fridge full of booze so that people hung out after work. It was like, it was fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
I just really think it stands out
Wow.
because
I love it.
this is a mentality thing that I struggle with. Because on one hand, that willingness to show up and help and put in the effort and learn skills, even without the expectation of receiving or like being told to do it, shows such a strong work ethic and ability to learn and to be part of a team and to move forward. It's so powerful. And I feel like today a lot of people are in this, well, if they're not paying me, I'm not showing up. If I don't know that there's something in it for me, I'm not putting something in it for them. And there's a middle ground there of like, absolutely, I agree with you. Don't just give yourself away, because the thing is for you, and I don't want to put words into your situation, but I'm assuming if you kept showing up and they eventually, after a while, they didn't pay you, they weren't seeing the value in you, you would have been like, okay, I'll leave. They're not seeing my value anymore. And there's a
Mm,
fine line between showing up and showing your value and getting and eventually getting that return for it, and putting yourself in harm's way just because you think it's a nice thing to do. And I think that's the thing a lot of people are missing is that desire to just show up and show your value. There's this book called The Go Giver, and he talks about giving more in value than you receive in payment. I can't
mm,
remember what the actual quote is. And I think that's the thing that's missing a lot, is the desire to give more in value than you intend to receive in payment in that moment. And the long
right.
term thing is eventually it's going to come back to you, but you're not doing it for that reason. You're doing it because you have the value to add and you can give that out anyways. And I just think that that's an incredible thing that you
Yeah, that
did.
was probably exactly what I was trying to convey to my daughter when she showed up at band practice and was in a sour mood and said, "It's so dumb. I just have to play the snare, like one thing, and I want to play the whole drum kit." And I said to her, "Well, unless you do play the snare excellent, like unless you nail that and you do the best job possible, you're not going to get promoted to the drum kit, or you're not going to learn how to use the whole drum kit. You have to be the very best at the thing that people give you to do, show them that you can do it, and then you'll be given more responsibility. That's like a basic value that I'm trying to instill in my daughter currently, and she's 11.
There's a tricky age, it's different. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
That.
It is a good thing. You
that.
have to do you have to be good at the thing you're already given, and then you get to move up and build responsibility. You don't just get to have the high responsibility right off of the bat. It has to be
Show when you play the small part in the play it that small part the best you could possibly can, and then next year you'll get a bigger part. It's like these little things that you're trying to explain to them at that age, because often they don't see that value unless it's an immediate gratification.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm going to take that actually today. I have my 8-year-old is in swimming lessons, and he's like, Mom, I can do bigger things than this. You need to bump me up to the next level.
Yeah.
Like, can you, and like, let's just bump me up to the next level. I don't want to do this anymore. It's boring. And I'm like, no, because you need to learn to listen to the coach and all of these things. And the coach needs to see that you can do these things. And then you move up because you're going to do the work. And then anyways, I'm going to
show them how good you are. Show them, prove to them that you are the
Yes.
best in the class, and that you should not be in this class anymore. And you need to move up, do everything excellent. And then more responsibility, more will be given to you. It's it's an old sort of biblical value, right? With like, to those who have been given much is expected, but like the fact that if you are given a little and you do a lot with that little, then you'll be given more to be responsible for. So in all aspects of our lives, we can really use that.
Yeah,
I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it so much.
Okay, I want to circle back to another thing you were talking about. All the circling back. Talking about when you were reaching out to brands and trying to get brands to be like, give me your product and I'll talk about it on my show. How often do you get a no with your reaching out for all of those things versus the
I've
people
been
who actually
asked
did?
about this several times recently, because people, were curious, like, how did you get all the brand partnerships? And it is a numbers game. Like, you definitely get more no's than you get yeses. And I think if you're discouraged by those no's, then it can feel, overwhelming, and maybe you don't want to do it anymore. But if you can, kind of take it as an opportunity to go in a different direction with a different brand, or find a brand that's more open to it, or even for me personally, I had a lot of luck with local small businesses and small brands that maybe had never worked with an influencer before. And so I would pitch to them the concept of this branded content, how people trust it far more than traditional marketing, that, you like that you're more likely to get a sale from branded content than a traditional radio ad, because the people who are watching it know me, they trust me, they have an investment in me as a person. And so me endorsing your brand is giving that extra little bit of a boost. So part of it was having to educate people that had never worked with influencers or on social media before, and then trying to convince them that there is value in it. And there is a challenge with that value conversion in terms of social media and my contributions maybe to other people's business successes, because it is hard to quantify it. Like, you don't know how many people have necessarily seen something that you've posted over the years multiple times, and therefore then they finally reached out to the door company or the window company or whatever it was, or the carpet company. But it may not be directly off of that single post that I did. It might be off of like multiple things that they've seen over the years. So sometimes you're just moving people toward, like, further up the line towards buying that product, but you're not actually making that conversion. So you kind of do have to explain to people that it's a bit of a longer term strategy, and just getting more eyes on your product and that brand recognition. But yeah, I did get a lot of no's. But the amount of yeses that I got was enough to keep me going and moving forward.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
I still get a lot of no's.
I wanted to ask that, and I'm sure the same reason other people ask you that question is because I think we can all get, like you say, stumped by those no's. And it's like, well, and again, I'm guessing your mentality wasn't, oh, I'm not good enough, so they said no to me. It's they don't see my value, someone else will. Right? I'm guessing that that's kind of where you were coming from, is
Yeah,
don't
there
diminish
was
your
some
own value.
frustration. Like there was a lot of frustration when I was starting to work with traditional family owned, hardware stores and things like that are very Atlantic maritime based family businesses that are like when I asked them, "Hey, do you want to give me some product in exchange for making a video?" They were like, "Well, or do you want to pay me money in exchange for making a video about this product?" They were like, "Well, we make most of our sales off of our flyer, so we don't see the value that you're bringing to the table." And it wasn't until years later after I approached these particular companies that they then started working with influencers and doing ads on social media. And then I would see like who they're partnering with or who they're working with. And I would be like, I was the one that first came to them and told them about this and gave them the idea, and they're not even working with me now. So sometimes, yeah, like it can be a little bit painful because you kind of put the energy into like changing somebody's mind, and then they eventually, when they come around to it, they're not even circling back to you. They're already they're already past that.
Yeah. But at the same time, you also gave the opportunity to that other influencer too. If you hadn't done that, they wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
So there's like extra value. I know that's not a win for you, but it's like a moral win, I guess. I want to ask, you've kind of alluded to this, but I want to maybe make it more specific. If you were to sit down with Rebekah when she was 31 years old and having a new baby as a single mom and having to figure out what was going to be the next steps for her, what would you say to yourself then, or someone in that same position?
Mm. When I think about maybe what I would have said to myself in my 20s or as I was getting closer to that age of having a baby, a lot of the challenges and things that I experienced in my 20s and that sort of sabotorial behavior that caused me a lot of anguish was caused from my undiagnosed ADHD that I didn't actually become medicated for until I was 32 or 33. Um, and so, maybe getting that under control a little bit earlier would have helped me to become more focused and more successful earlier, or even not make as many poor decisions. But I may not have gotten pregnant if I was medicated on ADHD for my ADHD. So it's hard to like when you look back and think, oh, yeah, like if I had done this differently, then I wouldn't be where I am today. But there are things about my health and like my longevity that I wish I had started perhaps earlier. I do have a ton of injuries. I have arthritis. I have all kinds of things going on in my body because I've experienced a lot of just physical injury over the year. And had I started a Pilates practice in my 20s, I might have not had so many injuries in my body. And I think had I started to understand the effects of alcohol on your body when I was younger, and if I didn't drink as much when I was in my 20s, maybe I wouldn't have some of those other issues that I've had over the years, or maybe I wouldn't have made so many poor decisions. So I'd probably, like, looking back, I would say, like, get healthy, eat healthy, don't drink so much, and avoid tall, handsome, charming men. Find a nice feminist man to support you. You don't need to date those good-looking guys.
It's so tricky.
Not that my boyfriend today is not good looking. You're very good looking. I just do need to put emphasis on that.
It's so tricky to think about those things that you think back in your life and you're like, oh, if I could have done this differently, I would have. To know which ones would have only progressed the trajectory of your life and which ones would have made it not happen at all. It's so tricky to know because some of them could have not happened and you would have gone on the exact same path you're on right now, just maybe in a better position. And some of them, if they didn't happen, you wouldn't be on this trajectory at all, and maybe could be on a better one, could be on a worse one. You have no idea, but it's so tricky to know which one of those things, what does what in your life, what teaches you what moves you forward, what could have held you back, it's so tricky to know. But thank you for sharing that. Yeah. What is one thing you would like everyone to know about you and DIY Mom?
Well, I would just love them to engage with me on my social media, like DIYmom.ca on Instagram, but also check out all the previous seasons of my show. You can follow that journey over 5 years. And that TV show is available on trybinge.tv. It's also available on my YouTube channel. Yeah, just like connecting with more people in different communities and helping people discover my journey and engage with my story. That is a big win for me. So I just love to hear from people that are listening to the podcast now, and if they find me on social media and want to reach out, that's tremendous.
I love that so much. Oh my
Same.
gosh. I have so many notes. I have so many. I'm soaking this all in. You are so wise, and we're just so grateful for you to spend your time with us this morning. And we're excited to talk to you again because we're going to have one more conversation. We're going to dive more into your single momness and
Yeah.
that journey. And we kind of on purpose didn't talk about that a lot today because we're saving it. So for anybody that's listening, that's like, why didn't you ask her that question? We will. And there's definitely a story there and it's really impactful. And we're going to touch on that the next time we chat. So
Yeah, there's definitely
yeah.
lots of micro stories inside the bigger story, right? But
Yeah, of
it's
course.
good just to kind of give people the big picture of my life and how I got to this place right now, and encourage
Mm-hmm.
other moms or other women out there that are listening, that they don't have to wait to have a man in their life to buy a house.
Love it.
You don't have to rely on a man to pick up a power tool. You can do it for yourself. You can renovate your own homes. You can, there's lots of creative ways to get ahead as a woman, and just to look for those opportunities and walk through whatever door is open to you that feels right. And just learning to trust your gut instinct as well, because there was many years that I questioned, was I doing the right thing? And then also hearing from other people that, oh, my ideas weren't that good or not that strong. And so having a bit of that ability um, to move things along and push forward even when you're being told no, or you're being told that it's not a good idea. If you know it's a good idea and you have that in your heart and in your mind, then I would say pursue it and see what doors open to you.
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome.
I love it so much.
Okay, I have one more question
So
for you.
great.
Sure.
What is your hope and goal for DIY Mom? Where are you hoping it goes?
Well, I'm very excited that I'm building another house this year. So my partner and I are building a brand new house together, just up the street from where I currently live. And by the time that house is done and I sell this house, I will be mortgage free. So being mortgage free is going to be huge. It'll just give me so many more opportunities to dream and think and scale up and do whatever I want to do, whether it's spending 6 months of the year in Africa or if it's investing in other areas of DIY mom or building my brand. So I really don't know what's going to happen, after next year. So I'm just kind of looking towards that finish line. And then at that point, I feel like the next 5, 10 years is going to be a whole different ball game. So right now I am a bit weighed down by a big mortgage and a lot of expenses. And so I'm just looking forward to getting that weight off my shoulders and just feeling free to explore anything I want to explore.
Yeah. Ugh, that's
I love that.
fantastic, Rebecca. Thank you so
So
much for
good.
being here with us today. I love so much about your story, about how much it was just go do it, go get it done, go figure out how, don't hold back. And I think that that's something that when you are in a relationship, whatever that relationship may be, maybe it's the relationship with your parents or relationship with a roommate or relationship with a spouse, whatever it is, we can often be, well, like that's their job. I don't know how to do it. And I
Mm,
really think that we empower ourselves when we say, if they weren't here, what would I do? And
mm,
go and just do it anyways, or figure out how to do it, or find someone to help us figure out how to do it. Because when you're a single parent, you have to do that. Yes, you could call someone for help, but like when you're alone in your home, you have to just figure out what to do when you don't know how to do it. When you're with somebody, we have the luxury of saying, I don't know how to do that, they do. And if we like shift that mindset to, but how would I do it without them? And
mm.
not in like a negative, like get out of my life way, but I don't know how to pin baseboard on. So that's my husband or my wife's job or whatever. well, how can you? Can you figure it out to get it done if you want to get it done? Or is that something you need to wait to do, right? So I think just your mentality of how much it was, I'm going to figure this out, can be applied whether you're single or not, if you so desire to apply that. So I just love it. I think it's really wonderful. So
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
yes, thank you so much, Rebekah. We are pleasure to speak with you. Pleasure to have you here on the podcast, and can't wait to speak with you again.
It was great connecting with you guys, and I look forward to our next chat.
Yes, us too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. To help support the growth of this podcast, please feel free to leave us a review, follow us on socials, or recommend us to your friends. Your support honestly means the world to us. With love, Sammy and Melissa.